Okay, are you ready for chapter 4? I'm so ready. Odysseus and his men have angered the goddess Athena because his men burnt one of her temples, and she has kind of taken her revenge, right? She's got Poseidon rolling up the seas. She has Zeus sending thunderbolts and lightning, and the men have finally landed on a mysterious shore. They've escaped the island of the lotus eaters that was making them all forget home. Where will they go next? We're about to find out. And I'll tell you, this is my favorite part of the book. It happens really early and it's good after this, but this is my favorite part. So here we go. The mysterious shore. Soon the Greek ships came upon a hilly island thick with trees. No humans seemed to live there. Hundreds of wild goats could be heard bleating from the island's gloomy thicket. Odysseus ordered his men to drop anchor in the shelter of a mist-covered bay. By the time the Greeks had lowered their sails, night had fallen. The moon was hidden by clouds. In the pitch dark, the men lay down on the sandy shore and slept. When daylight came, the men woke to see woodland nymphs, the daughters of Zeus, driving wild goats down from the hills. The hungry Greeks eagerly grabbed at their bows and spears and slew more than 100 goats. All day the Greeks lingered on the island, feasting on roasted meat and drinking sweet wine. As the sun went down, they stared at a mysterious shore across the water. Smoke rose from fires on the side of a mountain. The murmur of deep voices and the bleating of sheep wafted through the twilight. Who lives here? Who stokes those fires? Odysseus wondered silently. Are they friendly or lawless men? I was wondering the same things as Odysseus. I think sometimes authors have characters think things that we're also thinking. It keeps us interested. Darkness fell, and the Greeks slept once more on the sand. When he was wakened by the rosy dawn, Odysseus stared again at the mysterious shore in the distance. Though he was yearning to set sail for Ithaca, a strange curiosity had taken hold of him. Odysseus is curious. I wonder what will happen because of his curiosity. Odysseus woke his men. I must know who lives on that far shore, he said. With a single ship, I will lead an expedition to find out whether they are savages or civilized humans. Then we will continue our journey home. Odysseus chose his bravest men to go with him. They untied a ship from their fleet and pushed off from the island. Soon the Greeks were swinging their long oars into the calm face of the sea, rowing toward the mysterious shore. When they drew close, they dropped anchor beneath a tall, rocky cliff. Odysseus filled a goat skin with the best wine he had on board, made from the sweetest grapes. This will be our gift to repay the hospitality of anyone who welcomes us into his home, he said. Oh, that's nice that they're bringing a gift. He ordered some of his men to remain with the ship, then led the rest up the side of the cliff. On a ledge high above the water, they discovered a large, shady clearing. On the other side of the clearing, creeping vines hung over the mouth of a cave. The Greeks pushed past the vines and stepped inside. I feel like if Odysseus weren't curious, they never would have gone to this island. I wonder if it will have any other effects. The cave was filled with young goats and lambs. Pots of cheese and pails of goat's milk were everywhere, but there was no sign of a shepherd. Hurry, said one of Odysseus's men. Let us grab provisions and leave. Yes, we should drive the lambs down to our ship before their master returns, said another. No, Odysseus said. We will wait a while. I'm curious to see who lives here. I like that he says, no, we're going to stay because he's curious and not because it's wrong to rob people. The Greeks made a fire and gave an offering to the gods. Then they greedily took their fill of milk and cheese. Finally, in the late afternoon, they heard whistling and bleating. "Ah, the shepherd returns," Odysseus said. "Let us step forward and meet this man." But when they peered out of the cave, the Greeks gasped with horror, for the shepherd was not a man at all. He was a monster. Chapter 5, The One-Eyed Giant. A hideous giant lumbered into the clearing. He carried nearly half a forest's worth of wood on his back. His monstrous head jutted from his body like a shaggy mountain peak. A single eye bulged in the center of his forehead. So, a monster that has one eye is called a cyclops. And if you have more than one cyclops, they're called cyclopes. The monster was Polyphemus. Can you say Polyphemus? It's a pretty cool name. It's going to be important. He was the most savage of all the cyclopes, a race of fierce one-eyed giants who lived without laws or leaders. The cyclopes were ruthless creatures who were known to capture and devour any sailors who happened near their shores. Polyphemus threw down his pile of wood. As it crashed to the ground, Odysseus and his men fled to the darkest corner of the cave. Unaware that the Greeks were hiding inside, Polyphemus drove his animals into the cave. Then he rolled a huge boulder over its mouth to block out the light of day and imprison his flock inside. 24 wagons could not haul that rock away, Odysseus thought desperately. How will we escape this monster? Are you seeing the effects of Odysseus's curiosity? I hope so. Odysseus's men trembled with terror as the giant made a small fire and milked his goats in the shadowy light. His milking done, he threw more wood on his fire. The flame blazed brightly, lighting up the corners of the cave where Odysseus and his men were hiding. "What's this? Who are you? From where do you come?" the giant boomed. He glared at the Greeks with his single eye. "Are you pirates who steal the treasure of others?" Odysseus's men were frozen with terror, but Odysseus hid his own fear and stepped toward the monster. "We are not pirates," he said. "We are Greeks, blown off course by storm winds. Will you offer us the gift of hospitality like a good host? If you do, mighty Zeus, king of the gods, will be pleased. Zeus is the guardian of all strangers." "Fool!" the giant growled. "Who are you to tell me to please Zeus? I am a son of Poseidon, god of the seas. I'm not afraid of Zeus." Odysseus's men cowered in fear. Polyphemus moved closer to Odysseus. He spoke in a soft, terrible voice. "But tell me, stranger, where is your ship? Near or far from shore?" Odysseus knew Polyphemus was trying to trap him. "Our ship was destroyed in the storm," he lied. "It was dashed against the rocks. With these good men I escaped. I ask you again, will you welcome us?" The Cyclops stared for a moment at Odysseus. Then, without warning, he grabbed 2 Greeks. He smashed them against the stone floor, killing them at once. The giant tore the men limb from limb and devoured them, flesh, bones, and all. The rest of Odysseus's men cried aloud with horror. They raised their arms to Mount Olympus, begging Zeus for help. Odysseus gathered his strength and commanded his men to be silent. The giant washed down his gruesome meal with a bucket of goat's milk. "There," he said, smacking his lips. "Let that be my welcome to you." The monster belched. Then he lay down on the floor among his fat sheep and tiny lambs. Soon he was fast asleep and snoring. Trembling with rage, Odysseus drew his sword, ready to slay the bloodthirsty beast, but wisdom stopped him. He took a deep breath. "We can never roll that rock away from the entrance," he said to his horror-stricken men. If I slay the brute, we will die too, trapped forever in his wretched lair." Odysseus put away his weapon. He had no choice but to wait for morning and for the giant to wake. Oh my gosh, how are they going to escape this? Now that we've read chapter 4 and 5, answer the questions on the next slide. And then tomorrow, I'll read to you about Odysseus's plan, and we'll see whether or not it works. See you then.